Hi, I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
This is Jonathan Small, host and producer of All About You. This program is broadcast every single week at AccessTV.org studios in downtown Hartford. And this show is designed to give the guests a chance to give their life story. This morning, I have a very inspirational guest who's going to give his life story towards what has happened to him. He is an exoneree who has recently been released for a crime that he didn't commit. My guest this morning is Mark Schand. Good morning, Mark. How you doing?
How you doing? Good morning.
Okay. Could you briefly let people know exactly where you were born and raised at?
I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Jamaica, Queens, New York.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, ordinarily, I would kind of get more into how you grew up in that area, but because of your story, I kind of directly want to get towards, your life story and towards what happened in 1986. Could you kind of let people know exactly what led up to you being charged for a crime that you didn't commit?
Well, in 1986, I was arrested. I was in Hartford, Connecticut, and I was arrested for a murder. Mm-hmm. in Hartford, Connecticut. I was on Albany Avenue and I was arrested for a murder that occurred in Springfield, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And subsequently, I was taken to Springfield, Massachusetts. I was tried and convicted for the murder.
Okay.
And wound up serving 27 years for the murder. Mm-hmm. And I served 27 years for the murder. It was a murder I did not commit and had absolutely no involvement in whatsoever. And
mm-hmm.
While I was in there, I was telling everybody who would listen I had nothing to do with the murder. And I contacted several organizations and, kind of people that had to do with free and innocent people and working on cases of people that had nothing to do with the crimes that they were incarcerated for. And I wound up contacting a group called Centurion Ministries. Mm-hmm. And they worked diligently on my case and wound up, freeing me after, a lot of work, a lot of hard work. Centurion Ministry got me out of there. It was because of them I'm here. Them and two attorneys by the name of Linda and John Thompson.
Well, first of all, Mark, how did you get falsely accused of this particular crime that took place?
Well, a couple of youths went up to Springfield and committed a crime, and they chose they came down, the arresting officers, the investigating officers came to Hartford and asked the authorities here. They said we had some youths that came up there and committed a crime, and instead of the officers here, investigating the crime, they said, well, we think Mark Schand did it. Mm-hmm. They didn't go and say, well, let's investigate it, let's do our job and find out who did it or ask around who did it. They said, we think Mark Schand did it.
Yeah.
At the time of the crime, I wasn't exactly an angel. I was a street kid,
Okay.
So I guess they saw opportunity to get me out of their way. And they used that opportunity to get me out of there, so they basically handed me over on a silver platter. They didn't investigate the case. They didn't do their due diligence and check out what happened. They basically handed me over on a silver platter. And the district attorney in Massachusetts took me to Massachusetts and made it stick, mm-hmm. For lack of a better term. He took me there and made it stick. He did a few things up there. He handed out deals and he was in charge of a couple of cases, and he had a couple of guys that he were in charge of their cases. He had their cases were pending, and he had their cases, and they had time coming up, and he made sure they didn't do time. And one of the witnesses had 11 years coming. The key witness, as a matter of fact, had 11 years coming up. The case pending was under the district attorney, and he told him, if you say that's the guy that shot you, he was shot in the case. He said, if you say that's the guy that shot you, you won't do 11 years. Well, the guy told him, listen, that's not the guy that shot me.
Okay.
I got shot point blank range, and that's not him. And he said, well, if you just say that's him, you won't do the 11 years. He said, well, the guy testified that I was the guy that shot him point blank range. Well, he was one of the key witnesses against me. Mm-hmm. Had it not been for his testimony, I wouldn't have, got convicted. Cut to the chase, 27 years later, he was key in me being freed last October, when I was exonerated. So, stuff like that was going on with the district attorney's office. But I was basically arrested because the authorities in Connecticut saw it fit to just hand me over. Had they investigated the case, maybe they would have found out who really done it. But that wasn't the case.
Now, what happened actually was some type of drug robbery, and a woman was actually killed. Is that how it went
innocent bystander was killed.
Okay.
From how I understand it, some guys went up there and I guess someone got robbed for a chain or whatever. They went to retrieve it, and another group of youths went with them or whatever happened, and I guess a shooting occurred, and an innocent bystander across the street was shot, and a couple other guys were shot. I don't know particularly the details of the case, nor am I interested in the details of the case. I don't know what went on there. That's not my job to know. I had nothing to do with the case then. I don't want to know the particulars of the case now, but an innocent bystander was killed, a woman. I guess she was standing nearby watching the melee and was shot. And her uncle was a police captain or chief or something at the time the shooting occurred. And she perished, and that was the murder.
Well, I just say that because I think that's still kind of relevant that, an innocent bystander gets killed, and obviously nobody would like to see anybody lose their life.
Right.
And obviously nobody should be getting charged for a murder or any particular crime that they didn't commit, right, which actually leads back to you. So when the whole situation now goes down that you have been charged for the crime, you are going through the court systems, you get to a point that you just have to, did you take it to trial? Did you accept some type of plea bargain?
No, I didn't. No, absolutely not. No, okay. I took it to trial.
Okay.
They asked me to plead guilty several times. I was absolutely not going to plead guilty for a crime I had no involvement in. I took it to trial, and I was found guilty of the crime. And I lost all my appeals, and then I started writing in different organizations, like I said. And after I lost all my appeals, I started writing the organizations, and I got in touch with Centurion Ministries. And Centurion Ministries did their own investigation, and then I had a district attorney who was, for lack of a better term, he was interested in the truth. So with a little arm twisting, he reluctantly wanted to hear the truth, and he granted immunity to the people that were actually responsible for the crime. So they were reluctant to come out and tell the truth, but eventually they did. And they came in open court and said, listen, I was there. None of them would admit to actually committing the crime, but they came out and under oath said, listen, I was there. I didn't do the shooting, but I was there, and Mark Schand wasn't with me. 4 times in open court. And I passed lie detector tests, several of them, which was not admissible in court in the state of Massachusetts, but the head district attorney saw it fit to make them admissible, which he was allowed to do because he's the head district attorney. So he had one administered by his state trooper, which was a specialist in polygraph tests. He had them administered, and I'd done one previous, and both of them were admitted into court as evidence. Like I said, they're not admissible, but they were let in as evidence. The judge allowed it. I passed 2 lie detector tests, and if I'm not mistaken, one of the witnesses did also. And like I said, they came in open court and told the judge in open court and testified that all 4 of them were there at the scene of the crime, and I wasn't with them. Now, this is unprecedented because, not only all 4 of them admitted to being at the scene of the crime, but at the same time, all 4 of them excluded me from the crime. Now, to the layman, that sounds, normal. Okay, all 4 of them came in, but if you were to look in the law books, that's not common at all for 4 guys to admit to a murder and at the same time exclude a guy from a murder.
Right. Okay.
No, that's a little beyond uncommon.
Okay, but
if you were to go and do your research, I'm sure you would not find that a lot. 4 guys walking in the court and say, listen, we were all at the murder, and by the way, all 4 of the guys said, by the way, this guy wasn't with us. It was just unprecedented. And and to keep the guy that was shot point blank range, he also admitted in court that day that he lied on me 27 years ago.
Okay.
Well, the judge asked him, well, why did you lie? 27 years ago, you said that was the guy who shot you. He said, well, I told the district attorney back then that wasn't the guy that shot me. And he said, just say that's the guy who shot you. He said, well, that's not the guy that shot me. I got shot. The guy was 2 feet away. He said, well, if you say that's him, you won't do 11 years. He said, so I got on the stand and I testified. So this was all in the same day. So, at the end of that hearing, my attorney stood up and asked the judge, well, while you're considering and pondering the evidence you just heard, I'm going to ask you, can you consider releasing Mark Schand on bail or bracelet, conditional release, or some sort of GPS device while you're considering weighing this evidence? And, see, can you release this guy, until you grant him a new trial, or see if you're going to grant him a new trial based on the evidence you just heard. And the judge was having none of it. He said, no, Mark Shand's free to go today. And the court pretty much, went crazy, and, media was there and everything, and I was freed that day. That was October 4th of last year.
Well, Mark Schand, I know that's real important that you got free, but I just kind of want to give a lot of people, the insight for what it's like for a person to be sentenced towards a crime that they didn't commit. So when you was going through trial and knowing that you didn't commit this particular crime, obviously your faith and everything has to be tested, because obviously you probably realize that the odds are kind of stacked up against you.
Yeah.
And when
that's understatement.
Understatement, okay. But when it gets to the point when the judge makes the decision that you are found guilty and you're going to be sentenced from 27 years to life, what goes through your mind at that particular point?
Oh, well, I wasn't sentenced to 27 years of life. I was sentenced to natural life without the eligibility of parole. Natural life. I was sentenced to die in prison.
Okay.
Period. I wasn't sentenced. It just happened that I got out after 27 years.
Okay.
I wasn't sentenced to 27 years to get out after 27 years. That's just what happened. I was sentenced to natural life in jail without the eligibility of parole. I was sentenced to go there and die in prison. Period.
Okay.
And what was going through my mind was, I don't know if I can explain it, but, I was screaming inside. I knew nobody would listen if those screams came out, outside. So I didn't articulate them. I kept them in here, which I knew I had to do because I knew it was a lot of work to be done. I didn't understand the legal system at the time. I grew to understand it. I didn't understand it at the time. And I knew that the screaming couldn't get done in the court that day. So like I said, my screams were at the time, they were internal, and I just knew something, crazy had happened. So, I kept them inside, and I was saying to myself, I had nothing to do to this, nothing to do with this. And I was, like I said, I was screaming inside, and I knew I had work to do. And I went about trying to get out of there, and I started writing news organizations and, different various innocent projects and universities and students, law students, and different groups and all kind of stuff, man. I went to work, I just tried to help myself, and that's what I did, man. I just dug in, man, and I fought, and I kept going, and like I said, I ran up on this group, Centurion Ministries, and had not it been for them, man, and Lyndon John Thompson, 2 attorneys by the name of Lyndon John Thompson, man. It just was the perfect storm, But between Lyndon John Thompson, Centurion Ministries, and a district attorney who was willing to listen, it was the perfect storm. It all came together, and I think without one of those pieces, if one of those pieces was not there at the time, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be free. I'd still be serving a life sentence. I'm sure of it.
Well, Mark, it seems like to me, though, that you had a game plan, at least in your mind, before you even served one day in prison, that you was going to do something to try to get yourself out of this situation.
Oh, definitely. I wasn't going to just settle and say, oh, I'm going to, if I had something to do with the crime, if I had any involvement, if I planned it, if I dropped them off, picked them up, talked about it, knew about it, loaned them a bullet, loaned them a gun, I may have settled. But I knew I had nothing to do with it, so I knew from the minute they cuffed me up, which I thought it was candid camera, I thought it was a joke to begin with. From the minute they cuffed me up, I knew I had to fight to get out of there. Yeah, so definitely, I knew, I didn't know what the plan was, but I knew it was going to be a plan and a fight to get out of there. I knew I wasn't going to settle and accept doing a life bid, had it came to that, and it did. So, yeah.
Well, Mark, you probably heard that there's been other people falsely incarcerated for crimes that they didn't commit.
Oh, yeah.
Did that kind of give you a little bit of inspiration that if these guys were able to beat this case, if they was able to be found not guilty and they were able to be released, did that kind of give you some hope or inspiration that you could do the same thing?
Yeah, I reached out to several of them. I reached out to Reuben Hurricane Carter, the guy that Denzel Washington played. You know, we corresponded a couple of times. He was up in Canada, you know, and he passed several months ago. You know, he had his own Innocent Project up in Canada, and he was in contact with the Innocent Project that got me out, you know, and yeah, that gave me a little inspiration, you know. Yeah. Yeah, it did. And right now I'm trying to reach back and do what I can. Right. You know what I mean? Trying to help some people that's still in there now today. You know, that's what I can do, trying to do whatever I can. You know what I'm saying? Because I left some people behind that I believe is innocent of the crimes they committed, they was accused of committing. So, you know. Well,
we're up on our first break, and there's a lot more to your story that I want people to know, particularly your family and your strong wife that was also waiting and, you know, waiting for you and also behind, you know, your back. Because I think her story is kind of inspirational too, how she played a role. And I just kind of want people to know a little bit about the second part, you know, what was the process that you had to go through when you was in prison, and what also kind of, you know, gave you some belief. This is Jonathan Small. I'm hosting All About You this morning with my guest, Mark Schand, and we're up on our first break, and we're going to come right back very shortly. Thank you. This is Jonathan Small hosting All About You this morning with my guest, Mark Schand, and we're going to continue back with our conversation about what happened with his particular life, being falsely accused of a crime that he didn't commit. Mark Schand, when people lose time, it's really no replacement of time. I mean, you could try to make up for lost time. You could try to, you know, find other ways to make the best of your time, but when you lose time, that time is basically gone. And technically, you kind of lost 27 years of your life for a crime that you didn't commit. You have a family. What type of impact did that play on your family with you being incarcerated? You gotta let the people know that.
Yeah, well, the day I was arrested, I had 2 sons, and I had 1 unborn child.
Okay.
You know, and you know, my then girl, my now wife, was pregnant with my youngest son. You know, and I had to basically try to do what I can to raise them from prison.
Right.
You know, and man, my 3 sons, you know, they turned out real good, man. They you know, they fine young men, man. You know, and she had to struggle, man, with them. You know, and she did a phenomenal job, man. You know, with my youngest son. And, you know, my other 2 sons, you know, their moms, you know, they did a phenomenal job as well. And, you know, it is what it is, man. They turned out well, man. And she hung in there with me. You know, when I got released, she was at the gate, you know, she was there, man. You know, that's not easy. That's not easy to do, man, you know. So, you know, the family unit, man, they got me through it. You know, they was, you know, instrumental in me, you know, getting through that, man, you know. I saw them often, you know, And you know, yeah, it was a big part of it, man. You know, it was one of the reasons I fought hard to get to the other side of that fence, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, prison is not a nice, pretty place, and I don't know what type of prison. Were you in a maximum security prison or a medium security prison?
Well, because of my sentence, I had to be in a maximum security, the
Okay.
majority of my time. I got to a medium, maybe 30% of my sentence, and then, you know, because I was a bad boy sometime, I got sent back to the maximum.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But, I mean, it can't be easy being, around criminals, particularly when you didn't do a particular crime. So as the whole process, was anything that was kind of could possibly lead you into getting into something deeper? Because you just say you weren't really, you got sentenced back to a maximum security prison after you was gone to.
Yeah, well, once you're in there, they don't discriminate against you, or you know, they don't you know, separate you whether you say you done it or not. They treat everyone the same. They don't say, well, we think he's innocent of his crime, so treat him differently, and we think he did it. Everyone is treated accordingly like a criminal. You sentence you in the building, and that's how they treat you. So, you know, they treat you accordingly. They don't, you know, they don't separate that. They don't listen to that. If you scream you didn't do it in prison, that's you know, that's like one of the biggest prison jokes. You can scream. You say I didn't do it, everybody laughs at you.
Okay.
You know, I quickly learned to stop saying it. When I went in there, I was like, I'm in here for something I didn't do. Everybody looked at me and laughed, and I quickly learned to stop saying it. You know, some people believed it. You know, some people knew it. You know, you had some people that was locked up with me, and they was from the area where the crime occurred, and you know, they were well aware that I had nothing to do with the crime. But for the most part, you don't run around saying I had nothing to do with the crime. But you know, when you're in prison, you got to adjust. It's, you know, it's an altered society. There's nothing normal about it. You know, you don't see the bottom of a tree. You know, yeah, man. You know, you ripped from society. There's nothing normal about it, man. You don't have your family. You know, you waking up to you know, it's a mess, man. It's Animal House, and you know, you just got to adjust. And you know, that's just what I did, man. I can do that. You know, I did it. I had to do it. I had to survive to get to the other side. If I didn't, you know, if I caved into that, man, and just fell into that, I don't think I would have came out of it, you know, in one piece. So I basically had to have tunnel vision and focus on getting out of there. You know, at the same time, you know, simultaneously I had to survive it and have the tunnel vision. So I had to have the tunnel vision and live outside of it at the same time. It's odd. It was odd, but I had to do it, man.
Yeah.
You know, I had to do it. I had to survive it, man. You know, it's an odd place, man. You know, and it's even worse when you're in there for something you didn't do,
right? Because
you're constantly saying to yourself, everything you go through in there, you shouldn't go through. You saying, I shouldn't even be here. You know, and you don't have the time to feel sorry for yourself. You just don't have the time. Especially if you're trying to get out of there, you know.
Well, Mark, you mentioned that you worked with a lot of key groups that was trying to help to see if they could get you released. Was you in a position to work with these people throughout the week, or was it kind of like every now and then, the groups that kind of helped fight your case?
Well, I didn't work with them. I was trying to contact them.
Okay.
You know, and the majority of them didn't you know, write back. They didn't contact me back. You know. Some of them didn't, you know, they didn't write me back at all. They didn't contact me back. They were too busy. They had a log of people that they were, you know, dealing with. You know, Centurion Ministry was busy. They had a lot of people, so they had to, you know, these people, you know, they're dealing with a lot of people. They have to weigh which cases they're gonna take. You know, which cases are important, which cases they think they should take next. You know, in some cases, who they really believe, they go out and do their own independent investigation and see who they think they're gonna take next, you know, which one they think is more urgent sometime. And, you know, and you gotta understand, a lot of these people, you know, they operating on donations, some of them. You know, some of them get government funding, some of them won't take government funding. Some of them operate strictly on donations. So, you know, you gotta understand it. You know, they come when they can. They put you on the back burner, some of them do, and you gotta understand that. So, you know, I was writing some of them wouldn't answer, some of them couldn't answer. And, you know, a lot of the universities, you know, the students are hungry. They're learning. Okay. So if you get a group of students from a university, law students, to latch onto your case, and at the same time they're learning and they're inquisitive and they want to know what happened to you, oh, that can be golden. I don't know if you saw the movie, The Hurricane.
I saw part
Did you
of
see
it.
it?
Yeah, not the whole
Okay,
thing.
if you watch that whole movie, it was a true story.
Right.
And basically that's what happened to him. You know, he got a student and you know, they was learning at the same time. They was like, what happened to him? Like, oh my gosh, he's in the case for a crime he didn't do. And you know, he was learning at the same time and he latched on his case. And he wound up, man, this guy wound up, you know, getting him out of there. Well, you know, I'm in jail. You know, you watch TV a lot. You ain't got nothing else to do but eat potatoes and lift weights and watch TV. Well, I saw that, you know, that inspired me. I started writing this dude. You know what I'm saying? Wow, I wish I could get me a student. You know, I started writing students, but, you know, it didn't work out like that. You know, I was watching TV hoping to come up with something like that. But, you know, I was writing a lot of organizations, and you could only hope to come up with something like that. And, you know, I was lucky. I did. Centurion Ministries, man, they latched on. And these people, oh my gosh, these people are, I don't know where they come from, but these people are, when they latch on, they latch on. These people are, oh my gosh, they're good. They're good. And when they coming to get you, they're coming to get you.
Okay.
You know, they're out of Princeton, New Jersey, and they are just, they're phenomenal. You know what I mean? And, you know, all you could do is just, you're in there and you're at their mercy. Anybody who will listen, you're at their mercy. That's all you can do. But what you can't do is give up, because if you give up, believe me, you're there.
Okay.
You know, nobody's just going to knock the door and say, by the way, I'm coming to get you. That's not going to happen. Trust me, you got to fight. You got to fight. And that's just what I did.
Well, plus it's always harder to fight your case when you're incarcerated. That's why people always try their best to get a lawyer and not be in prison, you know, try to get released on bond, because to fight your case when you're incarcerated is always a lot harder to fight your case than when you're not in prison or in the system. And
yeah, you mean as opposed to getting bonded or bailed out or something?
Well, I mean, if you get arrested and you are in jail and you want to fight your case, getting bonded out, I think, doesn't it, if you get bonded out of jail or prison, you have a better chance of fighting your case?
Well, I would think only in the sense of, you know, you if you're fighting it, if you got to go to trial, you look better walking in the court from the other side as opposed to coming in chained up from a prison in prison orange suit or something.
Okay.
Other than that, no. But in my situation, it didn't make a difference because I was convicted, so I couldn't get bonded out.
Okay.
See, you know, there's different situations. If you're sentenced, you ain't getting bonded out. You're coming from that prison no matter what.
Okay.
You know, if you're not found guilty yet and you can make a bail, it's always better to come and walk in the court with your attorney and sit on the other side in a suit as opposed to the prison garb. You know, It looks better to the jury of 12. Like, wow, you know, he walked in with us. He when it was lunchtime, he walked out with us. He had his lunch. We seen him at the cafeteria with us and his attorneys. All of that looks better.
Okay.
You know, as opposed to coming in like this and then they have to uncuff you.
Yeah.
You know, and you sitting there with your attorneys in the orange suit and it got the prison initials on the back. You know, Hartford prison stamped on the back. You know, so you know those are little things that you know look better for the trial, but you know those are little situations that don't look so good for you, you know. So other than that, I don't know, you know.
Okay.
But in my situation, I was sentenced. So for my appeals, I couldn't come into court from the other side if I wanted. I couldn't get bailed out. Okay. I was sentenced already.
Okay, that's what
you know. So yeah, you know, I had to come from the prison. I didn't have a choice.
Now, Mark, when you got released after all of that hard work and effort and support, what was that feeling like to be released from prison and knowing that you're a free man?
It was surreal, to say the least. It was, you know, it's surreal, man. You know, a lot of things changed. A lot of things was the same also. You know, a lot of things stayed the same, but, you know, it was surreal, man. You know, I came home, man, you know, still today, man, you know, I drive around, I shake my head, man, you know. You know, I drive around sometime, I come to tears sometime, man, just drive around by myself. Yeah. You know, like, wow, I came out of that, you know, because there was times where I didn't think I would. You know, so it's surreal, man. You know?
Now, Mark, your life now from this point on, are you kind of dedicated to any particular cause since you got released from prison?
Well, you know, I got to get myself together, which, you know, I think I didn't do too bad. You know, I got a job, you know, I'm trying to settle down. I'm trying to start several small businesses. And, I'm trying to get myself together and settle down. And once I can get myself together and get really rooted and grounded, I'm gonna try to reach back and help some other people. And if I can grab onto a cause, if I could grab my ideal cause, it's a big one. But if I could get my ideal cause, it'll be to call some light, not only to wrongfully convicted, gentlemen and women that's incarcerated, but it'll be to call attention to district attorneys who get people wrongfully convicted and get away with it.
Okay.
Because the district attorney's office is used as a political stepping stone, and they're allowed to get people convicted and falsely accused and fabricate evidence and do all kind of stuff and walk away like it's nothing. And what they say is these are the tools they need to fight crime. This is the excuses they use. You know what I mean? It's used as a political stepping stone. What they do is they need to pile up convictions so they could become mayor and senator and governor. So what they do is they blindly say, I need 100 convictions. So when they run for the senator, they can say, well, I put away 100 murderers last year.
Yeah.
Okay, well, 7 of them was wrongfully convicted, and you knew it as district attorney.
Right.
But you just wanted the convictions. So now, and then they say, well, if we tie his hands behind his back, he can't fight crime. Okay, well, he paid one witness. He knocked off 5 years off of this witness. He made this witness falsely testify, knowing he did. He threatened this lady to take her baby if she didn't point at him and put this baby in the system. This is the tools they use.
Yeah.
In some of these cases. And don't get me wrong, some of the cases are righteous. They do what they got to do. But for the most part, this office is crazy, and it's not all of them. But a lot of these district attorneys, man, they're cowboys. And if I could, my ideal cause would be to call some light to that. A lot of these district attorneys, man, they run around like cowboys. They putting people in prison, man, and a lot of these convictions are not right. And it's not that they're doing it, it's that they get away with it and there's no consequences for them. These district attorneys should be cuffed up.
Okay.
The district attorney in my case, we knew at the time he had me on trial and he's walking back and forth and he's having this Perry Mason moment and he's Mark Schand jumped out of the van. At the time he had me on trial, he knew I wasn't the person that committed the crime. During the trial, he had a document that on the second page, the identification of the person didn't fit my description. And he knew it at the time. So he put me on trial knowing I wasn't the guy. He watched me get found guilty. And he sat back and lived his life and watched me do 27 years. He should be in prison for that.
Yeah.
Listen, that's a crime.
It is a crime, yeah.
It's a little beyond it, really. I'm just trying to be nice for the sake of this broadcast.
Right.
He should, listen, that's an atrocity. This man put me on trial, watched the judge say guilty, watched the judge sentence me to natural life in prison, and lived his life for almost 3 decades knowing I had nothing to do with the crime.
Yeah.
Absolutely knowing it. He should be in prison. This man should be, who could do that? Who can do that?
Well, that proves we got thugs and criminals in dress suits.
Yeah,
and
running the system.
The system.
Well, not only that, it proves that we got, our system isn't perfect. We got human beings running it.
Right.
That's what it is. We don't have robots running it that we can program to be perfect. We got human beings running it. That's what it is. It's, we got people with biases and we put them in there. They go and they get their college degrees and we set them loose in the system. But they got aspirations. They want to become this, and they got their stepping stones, and they want to go higher and do what they got to do, and they got to do what they got to do to get there. And if 100 convictions is what they got to do to get to their next step, so be it. And they're human beings.
Yeah.
And some of them come in with preconceived notions of people. Like he might have looked at me and said, listen, you did it, and you look like the person that would have done it, and I'm gonna get you convicted. When he came down, he said that much to me. When he came from Springfield and he interviewed me, he said, listen, yeah, you're a no good street dude, and I know you did it, and I'm gonna convict you. How the hell would you know that? You know what? Because I look a certain way. You got a view of me because of how I look or how I dress. So the system isn't perfect, and it's never gonna be perfect. We can't ask for a perfect system, but if it's some accountability for these district attorneys who get people wrongfully convicted, knowingly get people wrongfully convicted. Some of it will slow down. It's never going to be perfect, like I said, but some of this will slow down. And if I could have my ideal cause, it'd be to call some attention to that. Okay. Now that's a mountain. I know that's a hell of a mountain because, you know, it's the old boy network is alive and well, you know, because a lot of district attorneys are now judges and you know, so I'll be screaming I go in front of the legislature, yeah, we need some accountability. Mostly all of them sitting there used to be district attorneys. So who would I be talking to? They'll be looking at me like, watch your mouth, kid. You know, I used to be one of those.
Right.
You know, they'll be looking at me like, you know, I'll be screaming on deaf ears, man. They'll be looking at me like, listen, what you want me to do? This is how I got here. I had to get some convictions to get here.
Right.
So I know, you know, that'll be a rough mountain to climb. But if I could have my ideal cause, like you asked me, what would I like to do? I would love to call some attention to that and help some people that was in my situation get out of there. You know, if I can get rooted and get settled and you know, start an organization, you know, I would like to help some people get out of there, but I would really love to get in front of a legislation and get some kind of bill where district attorneys are accountable, especially if they could catch them and say, listen, we know that you knew that you made him falsely, you know, testify, or you gave him a deal to testify in a murder case. How can you give any kind of deal to a person to make them falsely get on the stand in a murder trial as a district attorney, as a head district attorney or any district attorney, and live with yourself? You're an officer of the court. How can you do it and get away with it? You should be held accountable instantaneously. The minute that's known, the minute that's common knowledge, you shouldn't be walking around. You shouldn't have another case log. You shouldn't have another case, nothing. In my opinion, you should be cuffed up. I think it's a crime. It's a crime. You know, I put you in charge of a case log, and in your case log, there's several cases where you ask Jonathan, I need you to point at this guy and say, he killed your friend. And Jonathan says, Mr. District Attorney, that's not the guy who shot me. And you say, listen, you won't do 11 years. Seriously?
Right.
And then the guy go do 27 years? Come on, that should be a crime.
Yeah.
That should be a crime. You know, not toot my own horn here or feeling too badly for myself, but I did almost 3 decades.
Yeah, you did.
I did almost 3 decades. And the guy that didn't do 11 years to testify against me, that told the district attorney originally that I wasn't the guy who shot him, is the tip of the iceberg. We don't have enough time to tell you the other stuff that this district attorney did.
Yeah, well, that's the key. We actually are out of time. There's a lot more to your story. Maybe sometime in the near future, I'll try to have you back or somebody back that could probably take this issues that you brought up towards the end to the different particular level. But I just felt your story was real important. It was real inspirational. And again, Mark, I wish you the very best of luck or whatever your plans are in the very near future.
Well, I want to thank you for having me, man.
Okay.
Thank you for having me, my brother.
No problem, Mark.
Thank you.
This is Jonathan Small. I had hosted All About You this morning with my guest, Mark Schand, who has recently been released from prison for a crime that he actually did not commit. And we kind of got into a lot of particular issues about the criminal justice system. And that's another whole issue that people always say, personally, don't get involved in the criminal justice system. But unfortunately, sometimes the criminal justice system could actually pick you into the system, whether you are involved in the system or not, kind of what my guest went through with his life. Again, there's a lot of good programs on accesstv.org network throughout the week that you could always tune into. And like I also say every week to people out there, have a very blessed day and keep the faith. Thank you.